Mandalorians are stronger together. You've heard that in The Mandalorian from Bo-Katan. But just like our helmeted friends from the fictional universe of Star Wars fans in the real world are stronger together too, and we have more in common than we think. And so I guess this is my call for unity. We have our disagreements, we've seen a lot of conflicts, a lot of bad behaviour, but it's our shared passion that we should focus on because that is what makes us strong. In the spirit of the Force, I wish we weren't in this predicament, that we could bridge these gaps and build a community where our opinions are just that. George Lucas's message was never about division. The world is divided as it is. As a Star Wars fandom, we shouldn't be doing this to ourselves. Hello my dear friends, and welcome back to another Star Wars news update. We have a lot to talk about. As always, I'm going to be covering the latest Star Wars updates, and don't worry, there's a lot of in-universe stuff. We're going to be talking about Ahsoka, but the biggest piece of news that's been circulating over social media in the last 24-48 hours is more Star Wars fan drama. You're probably very well aware of it, and if anything, it's just shown how divided the Star Wars fan base is. And Forbes, among other outlets, put out a piece about it, and they titled it as follows: "The Acolyte has caused Star Wars fandom to plunge into civil war." And the reason I'm highlighting this specific headline is I just so happen to agree that it really was the Acolyte that started all of this chaos. For years, Star Wars fans have been in division. There have always been arguments, always been fights, there's always been controversy, and it's nothing new. This dates back to Return of the Jedi, then there was the prequel stuff, The Phantom Menace caused a lot of divide, the sequel trilogy, same situation, but I've not seen it as bad as this. The Acolyte, and everything that followed, has exposed just how bad the situation is. And in this instance, it all concerns certain YouTubers. Just as we thought the drama from The Acolyte was over, a new battle has emerged. And what was arguments about content of the show has progressed into Star Wars fandom community, content creator communities. What saddens me the most is how Star Wars should be a fun topic to discuss. This should be our passion, this should be something we escape to when the real world gets too much. And it seems like we've deviated so much on focusing on what we love, that now we're so divided, different little factions and pockets have formed. It's the us versus them mentality. And I just wish we could go back to enjoying Star Wars and talking about it. There's been some really ugly behaviour across the fandom, as you guys probably know, and I'm convinced it's the Acolyte that sparked all of this. It was a long time coming, but it finally came to a head. And funnily enough, before all of this started, I tweeted this: Anakin's line in Revenge of the Sith, "If you're not with me, then you're my enemy," was a George Lucas jab at President Bush at the time. But now Star Wars fans are using this same mindset against other fans, and it's very divisive and unfortunate. And that's what we're seeing play out. Regardless of what you think of the current drama, regardless of, I guess, which side you agree with or anything like that, it's a wider symptom of the way the fandom has devolved into just such ridiculous infighting, immaturity, slandering in some cases, going after each other. Plenty of fans are willing to defend corporations like Disney instead of one another, because believe it or not guys, we have more in common as a fandom than we have differences. Why don't we focus on those? There seems to be this weird idea that I have seen for a couple of years, but it's been more pronounced after The Acolyte, that somehow disagreeing with someone is equal to hate. It's not. It gets disheartening when, as a content creator, if you don't like something, you're automatically grouped as something which you yourself are not, and people want to categorize you and say you're this or you're that, and you're just sat there thinking, no, I just didn't like the show. There's nothing deeper. But these labels get thrown around, even when you're literally talking about in-universe content, and it just makes you feel like if you have anything negative to say about a show, you're suddenly grouped. Do you know how many comments I've seen in recent months where people have said, "Oh, Meg has gone down the dark path, she's a grifter." Just the other day, people were calling me Fandom Menace for criticizing a character in The Acolyte. It's just so stupid. Don't put people in a box just because they criticized something you happen to like. And yes, it is possible to go over the line, and I never endorse going personal and making attacks, but it seems like legitimate criticisms are being mistaken as hatred, and that's not the case. We're existing in the craziest timeline for Star Wars, but I can't say I'm surprised. I can't say I'm surprised it's come to this, but when you're talking about upcoming content, be it Skeleton Crew, the upcoming movies, there doesn't seem to be as much interest. We've come to a point where the bulk of any real conversation about Star Wars is inevitably tied to whatever the latest controversy is. And that's partly Disney and Lucasfilm's fault. I mean, I can't help but wonder, had The Acolyte been the amazing Sith show that we were hoping it was going to be, well received the Star Wars fandom over, would we be in this crazy situation? Like I say, there's always been drama in the fandom, but I haven't seen it like this. Where do we go from here? And so, whether you like The Acolyte or you don't, the bottle's been shaken and opened, and it's kind of exhausting to see, especially when you want to talk about actual Star Wars content. There have been so many lies across social media, so much misconstruing of information. I would never endorse targeted attacks. It's so sad to see in our fandom, because it feels almost like, how do we come back from this? Well, as a Brit, one of our greatest ever artists, the Beatles, had some good advice. Come together. I guess this is a call for unity, and Disney and Lucasfilm are not blameless. And you've probably noticed I'm not going into any specifics. You guys already know what's going on, you've heard the situation, you don't need me to repeat all of that stuff. But as a creator who I would say prides myself in making Star Wars videos about some of the lore I love, theories, news updates, it's such a shame to see Star Wars in the state it's in, and the fandom getting more and more divided. I have a lot of respect for many content creators who've been doing this much longer than I have, and, even if I agree or disagree with their takes on things, I'm not one to go out of my way to disrespect them or talk badly about them. That's not me, that's not my style. So I'm not here to slander, not here to do any of that. I'm just here to say, can we focus on the Star Wars that we love? Can we try and come together? Because you'd be amazed at how much we actually have in common. I'm serious. Over the years, quite a few interesting developments have happened in my personal relationships with many creators and fans I've come to know. Those I've met in person at Star Wars Celebration, those I've contacted and communicated with online. And it's amazing that people who initially maybe didn't like me, or maybe we had beef, how those relationships have changed the more we actually talked, and the more we focused on why we got to love this Star Wars universe in the first place. Olive branches are possible, my friends. And I still have faith. I love this franchise, I love this universe, I love this fandom, and I certainly believe there are better days to come. I'm going to keep making videos about Star Wars that I love. I want to share that positivity with you, and if you're watching this and you're part of this community, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I really do. But let's talk about something more positive. In other Star Wars news, a big win for Ahsoka's first season. A year on from the first season dropping on Disney+, the Dave Filoni series is now Emmy Award winning. On Sunday it picked up the Emmy for Creative Arts, and this marks the first Emmy win for the show. And it should be said, the creativity and originality behind the costume designs doesn't get enough love. But the news is bittersweet because Shauna Tripsick was the costume designer behind the show, and she passed away last October, so the award is posthumous. During the night, Ahsoka earned 5 nominations. It was also up for Outstanding Special Visual Effects, Outstanding Period or Fantasy Sci-Fi Hairstyling, Outstanding Prosthetic Makeup, and Outstanding Sound Editing. I would say it's a very well-deserved win, and I'm hoping the second season, whenever that comes out, similarly blows us away. There will be more opportunities for the show, no doubt, but for now this is a massive victory for the Dave Filoni show. But with that said, my dear friends, I know this is a bit of a weird one, and we had to really save the Star Wars news itself for the end, but I hope you had fun nonetheless. Let me know your thoughts on everything we spoke about in the comments down below. I'm also over on Twitter at StarWarsMeg1. If you enjoyed this one, please be sure to give me a big fat thumbs up, subscribe if you're new. I appreciate you watching, and may the Force be with you, always.